I'm a little bit of a smart aleck, and I'd said, well, you need to start hanging out at a country club instead of hanging out at a bar. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I've always...
Because there's more than just having a good personality. What do you look for in a good partner? This episode of the Breakthrough Podcast is brought to you by Orange Visuals. OrangeVisuals.com is a premium marketing team here locally in Columbus, Ohio that specializes in helping top producing real estate professionals compete at a high level. Whether you want to maximize referrals, repeat business, grow your branding, our team can help you do so through premium video content, which we help you film, edit, script, produce, the whole 9 yards. You can use our own personal studio, or we can go to your location. We also have a team of dedicated professionals, photographers, videographers, editors that can produce high quality listing marketing. You can go on our website, orangevisuals.com, schedule your booking. You can book all kinds of different services. Everything is delivered in 24 hours. orangevisuals.com, premium listing marketing and video content to grow your brand. Well, Brian, thank you so much for the opportunity and to be welcomed into your home. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to learn a few things from you, and just thank you for being able to take this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Well, first of all, we're in an office that I think many people would dream of having. I'm sure you get that compliment a lot.
Yeah.
Just as an easy question, I was going to ask you before the interview, but I thought I would save it for the interview. What is the most impactful book that you've read in your life?
The most impactful book. Business or personal?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I guess most impactful would be for your whole life.
That's a toughie. To pick one is tough. I'll pick. How about I pick an author?
Sure.
John Maxwell.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Leadership.
Yeah.
What would you say would be the thing that was like a switch that he mentioned or said that was so impactful to you? Because I'm sure there was a point in your life where you had leadership situations where you're like stuck, and maybe there was that breakthrough for you.
Yeah.
What was that?
Just one.
It doesn't have to be just
one. I've
been
around for a while. I've had lots of hiccups.
You can start with one and move on to another one.
I think, and this was not Maxwell, but I think just probably some of the biggest lessons are, if you help enough other people get what they want, you ultimately get what you want. And I had lunch today with a longtime friend of mine, and who's in a very similar position to me, and we were just having just leadership conversations that realizing that a lot of times it doesn't happen overnight. When it doesn't and you're frustrated, what do you rely on, and who do you lean on to talk to for support, but also realizing that time doing the right thing over and over again will ultimately get you the end result that you're looking for.
And were you always in real estate? Because right now a lot of people know you as in real estate. Were you always in real estate?
Yeah, pretty much. So I was at Ohio State University, going to school, working 2 different jobs while I was in school as well. And one of my jobs, I was working part-time for a realtor with RE/MAX. And I worked for him for about 2 years. His name was Rod Lynch. He's since passed away. Was a wonderful friend and mentor. But I did a little bit of everything for him. I painted his rentals. I held open house. I was a host. He represented a builder or two, and so I would hold the houses open. I was the host because I didn't have a real estate license then.
Because you were still in school.
Yeah. And
so you're basically introduced into real estate from the get-go.
Yeah. And it's something I've always been interested in. I had a conversation in the fall with one of my best friends from high school, who reminded me. He said, "Remember when you would drag me through those, the new construction houses that were in our neighborhood?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do remember that." So it's always been something that I've been fascinated with. I thought when I started in college that I would be an architect, and my professor told me I couldn't draw and that I probably needed to find another profession. So the rest is history.
So you listened to his wisdom and took it.
Yeah. Wisdom. Yeah. It was very uplifting.
But look where you are now.
Yes. I don't regret the path that started.
So did you, when you had that moment, and I didn't think I would find it so quickly, but I guess that's the challenge that you kind of initially were facing, what you were going to do. Was real estate immediately the obvious answer for you, or did you have your sights on something else at first?
I mean, other than the architecture, I mean, once that was taken off of the table, I think part of being around Rod and seeing what he did on a day-to-day basis, and he said to me one day, he always called me Kemp, and he was like, "Kemp, why don't you get your real estate license?" I said, "Okay, all right." I mean, I was like a dog, I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." And but I had a suit and tie job downtown with the Franklin County Auditor's Office also, and so I saved a lot of money. I saved up 6 months worth of rent, and I had a car payment, which was stupid, but I needed a decent car, so I did have a car payment. I had that up, and I gave my roommate the rent money and said, "Don't give this back to me, no matter what." And so I got started and had some successes quickly.
Within real estate?
Within real estate, yeah.
Mm-hmm. When you joined, I guess you were on his team, or you were just working alongside him?
Teams were not prevalent at the time. Okay. So he was at RE/MAX. He did not encourage me to come to RE/MAX because of their financial model. There were better financial models. So I interviewed at several places and went to Coldwell Banker. I was there for about 4 months, and my manager at the Coldwell Banker office left to go be a manager at a Prudential franchise startup, started by two women who were very successful. One has since passed. The other one is Joanne Figge. She's was a broker here in Columbus, and just a wonderful woman. She was like a mother to me. So,
were you going into real estate, I guess, finding some success? You could probably see that this is something that I could do. When did you decide that this is more than just something I can do, that this is something I can excel at? I mean, how did you go from being that single agent to where you are now with a team and everything else that you do within real estate?
I mean, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I've always, Joanne Figge I think she said I was one of the first agents that she knew of that had an assistant. I loved being around people, and working directly with people, but paperwork was not one of my strong suits. So early on, one of the agents in my office pointed out, she said, there's money in that pile of paper there, and you need to get your files compliant, and so you can get paid, because you may not need the money right this minute, but you're going to need it soon. And so I ended up, a friend of mine, it was coincidence, reached out to me to purchase. She wanted to buy a house, but she also needed to make some more money and was looking for a part-time job. I said, "Great, come on in. You can help me with my paperwork." And she loved that, and it was good for both of us. And it just kind of grew. It grew from there. I feel I'm very learning based, and we would go to different conferences, and you would hear what people were doing across the country. So I don't know that I really had any great original ideas, but I've been able to rip off and duplicate. It's called ROAD, ROAD, rip off and duplicate. What other people were doing that was successful across the country. So,
were you one to set goals and aspire to do great things, or was it more of just go with the flow, do the next right thing in the meantime, and over years it kind of grew into something great?
Once I got into a coaching relationship and was willing to be able to be coached, then it was more goal setting. And, would I have done that on my own? I might have eventually got there, but my coach helped me.
So that was like a big stepping stone.
Yeah.
And how early or how late did you adopt that? Like, was that something you initially realized right away, I need to pay a coach? Or what does that look like?
Probably, I would say 5 or 6 years into my sales business. And, I mean, now coaching is so prevalent. But at the time, I mean, maybe it was, and it just wasn't on my radar. I mean, we had in the brokerage that I was part of, the Prudential office, there were, it was friendly, competitive. There were a lot of us, that, were single agents that we would work together and help each other out when each other traveled and things like that. Did we sit down and set goals and do vision boards? At times we did. I knew financially what I needed to make in order to survive. Do I wish that I had hired a coach sooner? Always.
So was your decision to make a coach like as a matter of I need to learn how to do this so that I could survive, or was it like a matter of getting to the next level?
Because
you've plateaued.
Yeah, both. Okay. A little of both. Little of both. So one of my first coaches was very much into cold calling, and was holding me accountable to cold calling situations, and that just is not. I mean, I'm fine having a warm conversation. I do not enjoy having a conversation with, trying to get somebody.
I mean, who does?
So there are people who thrive on it. There's some agents on our team and in our office that love it. I don't. I'll go knock on doors. I don't mind knocking on doors, but to pick up a phone, and it's scary and it's heavy. So
when you got started in real estate, were you right away in the market that you are now with, because you work with a lot of luxury listings, like we helped you do the $2.5 million listing in downtown. How did you get into that? Because I've heard two schools of thoughts, which is like, one is you gradually get yourself up there, but on the other hand, some people say, no, that actually is counterproductive. You want to go there right away and hang out among those people. What did you do?
I would say that it developed over time. It wasn't immediate. The brokerage that I was a part of did a lot of new construction, and so that was at the time was a higher than normal sales price. And it's one of my business partners, Sue Gleach, jokes that she would say that she has to sell 2 houses for every one that I sell. And I'm a little bit of a smart aleck, and I'd said, well, you need to start hanging out at a country club instead of hanging out at a bar. Somebody said that to me at one point in time, and it resonated with me. And it's who are you hanging out with, and who are you choosing to be around? So we did, when the luxury designation came about, I applied for that and went through the classes.
What is that luxury designation?
It's the certified luxury home marketing specialist, CLM.
Oh, okay.
CL,
it's like
easy one for me to say. Yeah, one of those. It's a bunch of initials.
Okay.
But it's a luxury designation that you can advertise and market and network through that. So and part of it is just, is showing up and being professional. Do you have a regular listing presentation, or do you have a luxury listing presentation? And, I was fortunate enough a number of years ago to be, I'm part of the Central Ohio Luxury Home Network. And there's 22 of us from all different brokerages that represent the whole city. And we meet monthly, we tour. We're educating ourselves on what's going on in the different communities. We just had a meeting in New Albany and had a large presentation about what's going on with the intel and all the growth and development around New Albany. So
I've realized as I've talked with a lot of real estate professionals and in business in general, you tend to work with the people that you can resonate with, which, I mean, if you're a brand new agent, you don't have much understanding of the market. To work with a luxury clientele who has a lot of understanding, most likely, how do you bridge that gap? Did you have to, I mean, one way would be like to start living as if though you're able to afford that lifestyle, but like if you're starting out, how do you get to the level to where you're able to resonate with those people and with that kind of caliber of people? And what did you do to?
I think it's multiple things. You know, it's doing the the research. It's you know, touring those homes so that you know the difference between a high-end appliance package and a medium appliance package, and what are those brand names. What does a luxury client expect in a transaction?
In terms of like service?
Yeah. What are some extra additional things that you could offer to that client that they may not be getting? If it's a relocation client, are you having a gift delivered to their hotel when they're coming in for their interview or their homes tour? Is it making sure that your car is completely spotless?
Have you had any bad experiences, or have you heard or learned any of these lessons the hard way?
Oh yeah. It's I mean, I've been fired by a client before. When you're talking about, we had a lead call come in, and this was very early on in my career, and the person whose listing it was could not. They already had another appointment, so they said, "Go ahead and go show this house." And it was new construction, and it was close to a railroad track. And there were two houses for sale near each other. And the client asked when we first got there, they said, well, there was a train going by. And they said, well, how often does the train go by here? Oh, I had no idea. I mean, I didn't have a copy of the train schedule. And I should have, in hindsight, I should have said, you know what, Timothy, that's a great question. I'll get a copy of the train schedule for you. But being a salesperson, I thought I would answer it. And I'm like, I don't know, a couple times, 2 or 3 times a day. And so we walk out, we go into the first house and see it, and they kind of liked it. And he said, can we go and see the second home? And we're walking down the street to the second house, and guess what goes by?
The train.
The second train. And as we're walking out of the second house, a third train goes by. I'm like, I'm done. I'm doomed. And I never heard from those people ever again.
Wow.
So,
and for sure it's because of that.
Yes.
I'm
90% sure. They're like, this kid has no idea what he's talking about. And these are the busiest railroad tracks in the entire city of Columbus. So, and somebody shortly after there shared with me that, when you're meeting with somebody, you don't have to have all the answers. It's okay to say, Timothy, that's a great question. Let me get back to you on that. So,
do you have any other stories of like?
Oh, I've got tons of them. There's a book up here. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, if you could share some of them, because I mean these are very valuable things, and they're the most memorable too.
I think part of having a consultative approach to your business, where you have to realize that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and as a salesperson, you should use them accordingly. So I should be listening to you twice as much as I'm talking to you, but also asking you really good, deep questions. What's most important for you in your home search? If we can find your dream home, what does that look like? And and then also asking, how can you, getting back to kind of the luxury question, if I can make your experience a 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, if I can make this our time together, whether it's house hunting or home selling, a 10, what does that look like? And if I can make it 1 better, what's going to make it a 10 plus, and maybe a 10 plus plus?
When it comes like for your business right now, looking forward, you've accomplished so much in terms of success from the outside, like truly top tier. What is what does it look like moving forward for you?
I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing it for over 30 years. Am I at the sunset of my career? I hope not. I don't think I am. I don't feel like I am. I think that, if I
Feel like you're just getting started?
some days, the new team that Taylor and Zach and I formed has really has been very energizing, and it's fun to grow the team and pour back into the agents. When I was on my own in the past, it was when I was leading the team. There were probably a lot of things that I did right, but there were just as many that I did wrong. And it's hard to be everything, to go do the sales and then to come back and motivate the sales team and the admin team. And, I think one thing that I've learned with this new relationship is to kind of stay in my lane. What am I best at? And then we also spent a lot of time in the beginning really trying to figure out, like, if we're going to do this, what is the most value that we can bring to our team members? Mm-hmm. And that can be a buyer's agent. It can be an administrative role. It can also be, you're one of our vendors. Mm-hmm. How do we receive value from you, but how do we also bring you value? What are the things that we can do, to help you grow your business as well?
Would you say that's the most important thing of leading a team? Because I found myself, as I'm starting to grow my team, how much I don't know about what it means to lead a team in a successful way.
There's a whole bunch of John Maxwell books up here for you.
Which you mentioned at the beginning.
You can check them out.
Well, it's truly, because there's one thing to just know what you want to get from the team, mm-hmm. but I'm sure, and that's where I'm in the dark of what does it mean to lead your team so that you do get what you want. Because I'm sure it's more than just saying, I want this. There's mm-hmm. other steps involved with making sure their needs are met. Mm-hmm. What have you found a good way to get to know what is it that your team is looking for? Because they're mm-hmm. probably beyond just the technicalities of business.
Mm-hmm. I think with Taylor and Zach and I think one of the biggest things that we'll talk to a lot of people, but we do it's a Keller Williams process called career visioning, where you're actually it's about a 6 or 7 step interview process, where you're really diving in deep with the candidate and really finding out what's important to them.
This is like for recruiting them, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And then also making sure at the end of the day, at each interview, you've got to stop and say, do I want to move forward with this person? Do I feel good about where our conversations are going? Maybe what what's your motivation? What are your past successes? What are some things that you've done really well? And, will it be a win-win in the end? Our team is at the size now where we really need to make sure that, the person is a cultural fit for our team. And so at one of our last steps is we bring that candidate in to meet with the whole team, and then the team asks each person asks that person a question, and then we allow the candidate time to ask questions of each of us. And a lot of times, the good candidates, a lot of the candidates are saying, so Timothy, why are you on the reEquity team? What brought you here? And it's fun and very rewarding and very uplifting to hear the reasonings why they're doing it. Mm-hmm. We have an agent on our team who went through some personal struggles when they first joined the team, and each of us, Taylor and Zach and I, each took the time to call and check in on that person and make sure that they were doing okay and did they need anything, and allowing them that time. Would it have been easier to say, you need to get your butt in here and start selling some houses? Yeah, but that wasn't what was most important for that person at the time. Mm-hmm. And allowing that person some grace and some time to get things together and come in was most important. At the end of the day, we're in a people business.
Yeah.
So,
looking back throughout your career to this point, mm-hmm. what would you say is I don't know if you would say accomplishment that you're most proud of, or status? Like, what are you most proud of over the course of your career thus far? Would it be the team of people you've grown close with, the financial freedom, because most people from the beginning are chasing the financial freedom, but from my experience, the people on the other side are saying there's more valuable things than that.
Yeah. I think if you do everything else right, the money will follow. The money has never been. I mean, it might have driven me to get up and get out of bed and get to work, but it's not really been. It's not been a true driver for me at the end. Relationships, being able to maintain, as I told you. I mean, I've struggled through the years, building a team and maintaining a team, yet still being able to have those relationships at the end of the day and not feeling like, there's people that I can't talk to or don't want to talk to. Not every relationship ends that way, but the majority of them do. And I've also, I think that, when I look at some of my success, some of the people that, were on my team have also gone to grow their own teams also. And so what was a learning lesson for me was that at that time, I don't think I made my world big enough so that they could have a big world within my world.
What do you mean?
Does that make sense?
You mean that?
Like, I maybe wasn't, at the time, I wasn't a big enough thinker that they felt like if I want to go do this really big business over here, I'm going to need to separate from Brian and go over here and try this.
So in terms making your opportunities big enough so that they can feel like they could have a part of it too, because otherwise if it's too small, you're just getting everything for yourself and they're not.
And they're going to hit that ceiling and then, or we're going to hit that ceiling. And so I think that's, just, learning to think bigger and also think differently. I mean, there's, I think that, Gary Keller fortunately has given us a model to follow with growing a team, but also realizing that, that might need, some tweaks or some changes or something that, I mean, if you and I were in business together and things were going successful, what would I have to do to make sure that relationship continued for a long time?
Mm-hmm. I have a question that I want to save for the end, but
okay.
I do have like a series of practical questions.
Sure.
If you can. So when it comes to an entrepreneur, they've done a few years in business. They've started to make some money. At what point does it make sense to start considering diversifying and investing, especially like into real estate? Because some people will just say, whatever minimal you can put down to buy a property, do so, leverage. Other people I've heard say, just wait until you have a couple $100,000 saved up so you can comfortably do it. What kind of advice do you recommend?
So can I ask a specific question? Do you own real estate at this time? I mean, and let's say we're,
Yeah.
You come to me and you say, what's your investment advice? Do you own rental property or your own home right now?
Like, let's say my example, like I have a personal residence, like I have my own house, but beyond that, like in terms of investing as like a investment, when would it make sense?
Right away.
Right away?
Right away. I mean, as long as you're not overextending yourself and you feel comfortable with my rule of thumb.
How can you gauge if you are overextending yourself? Let's put it that way.
I think if you're borrowing the money, I mean, your lender's gonna come back and say, or if you're in a complete commission only sales business and you don't have enough reserves, whether and you need to make sure what that is, what you're most comfortable with. Is that 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Certain people are gonna feel comfortable at different levels. But it's also, I look at kind of my rule of thumb when I was investing was, it was a model that I followed from Jimmy McKissick, who's one of our regional owners, was I made sure that when I purchased a property, that I had at least 30% equity in the property. So whether that was if it needed work and I was putting 20% down, but an additional 10% of the value of that property into improvements, then there's my 30% equity.
So at least 30%.
I did not finance anything over, in the latter part early in my investing I did, but when we got to a certain point, David and I made some decisions that we weren't going to finance anything over 15 years because we wanted to be at 60 years old with everything paid off, with the investment properties paid off. So as long as, and then our additional criteria, so it was the 30%, we wouldn't finance anything over 15 years. And you could do 30. I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, so go for 30. I mean, what does it matter? The tenant's going to be paying your mortgage payment anyway. So what does it matter whether it takes you a little bit longer? Or if you want to, and then you can always double up. You can double up on the payments if your property's making money. And then the last thing was that I made sure that the rent that we would be able to charge would be at least $100, a minimum of $100 or more than the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
All the expenses.
Yeah. And if it was a condo, add the condo fee onto that as well.
So
you're not making a ton of money every month, but you're covering your expense.
Oh, that's actually a good question. So in that situation, when you're just, let's say you're profiting $100 on top of what it costs to have the property, is that enough margin in your experience to cover like maintenance that will inevitably come up? Or is that, how do you usually?
Over time. Over time. Yeah. And then again, that's your 90, 180 days worth of reserves, I mean, we may not have had it right in that account, but we had enough reserves, so if the furnace went out, you could write a check for $5,000 to have to replace the furnace. But there's also, there's other ways around that, and if you wait till the perfect time, you're never going to do it. There is no perfect time. You're always going to say, well, I need another 30 days worth of reserves, or, I'll wait for a better buy to come up. Just get into the market.
Interesting. That's very interesting advice. I mean, I think it's really exciting to hear that because that means that I'm not so much far off as I thought. So,
and I'm going to back up for just a second because since you already own a property, if you didn't, if somebody's listening who doesn't own a property already, and I wish that I would have done this, I didn't. My sister and brother-in-law did, was to buy a double. Start off your first investment as a 2-family. And live in one side of it, preferably the crappy side, rent out the nicer side, because you're going to be able to get more rent. That rent is going to help cover and diminish your output every month. Then fix up the crappy side while you're living there, and then rent that out and move on, or move to the other side, or buy another double and do the same thing again.
What is your perspective on when people build up a certain portion of equity in a property and then they refinance, pool it the maximum that they can to buy another property, and they kind of go in that route? Do you recommend that kind of route, or do you think that would be over leveraging?
We did not do that, but I do know plenty of people who've done it, and that's how they've got started, and they've actually surpassed me in the number of properties and the time that it took me to get there. So
you're not going to bash
it? We're a little more concerned. I'm not bashing it at all, no.
I wasn't enticing you to. I'm genuinely an open book in these kind of things because I don't have as much experience. There was another thing I was going to ask.
I mean, you're more more open to risk the younger you are. I'm kind of, the older I've gotten, I want things paid off, and I'm risk adverse. So
that makes sense. My question also was, when it does come to making an investment, what kind of investments did you find to be best? Because there's a few options like single families. You can get, like you said, a double or like multiple units. And then the thing I've been kind of interested lately is commercial mixed use, which is maybe like a storefront and 2 apartments, just because of the percentage of income that you can get versus what the expenses are much greater. Have you had experience in those areas?
Not in the only thing we've done is single family and multifamily, no more than 2 units. Both resident, single family and condos, and a fee simple townhouse. a fee simple townhouse was actually the very first investment.
What is that?
That is, to look at it on paper, you'd be like, that's a condo. It's a condo, but it's actually, you actually own the land that it's sitting on.
Okay.
And so there were neighborhood association fees, but not a large condo fee. So it kind of lives like a single family, although it was attached on, there were, it was like 6, I think there were 6 in a building.
Oh, okay.
And so you had neighbors attached to you on both sides.
Okay.
So it looks like a condo, but it's not a condo.
Makes sense.
So, and they're also easier to finance than a condominium. Mm-hmm. So sometimes with condos, you have to put a little bit more money down depending upon whether they're warranted or not. So.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And then another practical question I had was, in terms of finding business partners, do you have any experience, or you've had experience, but anything that you've learned over your experience that has helped you determine whether or not doing business with X and Y person is good? Because there's more than just having a good personality. What do you look for in a good partner?
Are your goals aligned? Are your values and your culture aligned? I think one of the, Dave Ramsey talks about during his interview process, he always takes, if he's going into business or hiring somebody, he may take you out, but if you have a spouse or significant other, he's going to include both of you in a night out to dinner, because you may not be hiring crazy or getting into business with crazy, but they might be married to crazy. You know what I'm talking about. Well, you probably know some people like this.
Well, I mean, it is true. Like because it's common knowledge, I guess. I hope it is, that who you hang out with is who you are inevitably going to be like, and so you want to know who that person is hanging out with.
Yeah.
Because it is a big risk. It's a very big risk. Well, and
what are the conversations that, if that's you and I, and every time you and I get together, you're having a conversation and you're complaining or griping or gossiping about somebody, that, that's resonating in the back of my mind, that, if you're doing that with me, you're probably going to be doing that with other people about me. Mm-hmm. So
you sound like you have stories, but you probably don't want to share those.
Yeah.
So as we conclude, and I appreciate your time, what is the legacy, or what would you want to be remembered as you, like, in your life? What is the most important thing that you'd want to leave in this world?
As you know, I'm a father, so that to me is probably the most important thing. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, to have the love and respect of my son and my partner would be most important. As far as in the business world, knowing that you can sleep at night, that you've done the right thing, or have at least attempted to do the right thing, and if you didn't, to be a big enough person to go and apologize and say, I may not have handled that as well as I could have. And learning from your mistakes. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, to be able to hold your head held, have your head held high and do the right thing.
Yeah, I'm amazed with how many conversations I've had like this, and at the end of the day, after all the business and all the accomplishments, those things are never the most important thing to 99% of the people I've talked to. It's always been the relationships, the reputation, how you've impacted people that are closest to you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy because we so quickly agree with that, but so often our daily life and daily activities don't reflect that we truly value those things.
Yeah.
And we put our attention and time into things that at the end of our life we would say that was not the most valuable.
Yeah.
And so I always encourage everyone to make sure that you do, as I don't know who said this, but make sure the main things stay the main thing.
Yeah. What's your mission? And if it's, if something comes up, I think one of the biggest things that I had a hard time with in the beginning was saying no to anything. Mm-hmm. People would say, do you want to be on this committee? Sure, I'll be on that committee. Do you want to do do you want to go to this volunteer activity? And now I think one of the biggest impacts for me was when the market crashed in 2008. We were adopting our son, and he was 5 years old. It was a disrupted adoption, and I wanted to spend as much time with him as possible to make sure that he was comfortable and knew he was loved and that we were there for him. But I also knew I had a crazy real estate schedule, and it got to the point where you shifted and modified, and it was like, I didn't have to go on every single listing appointment, and I didn't have to work with every single buyer that was out there. It was, if we aligned and things worked well and people were willing, a lot of times it's just a simple matter of saying, I already have an appointment at that time. Doesn't matter whether that appointment is you're picking your son up at school, or you're spending time with him after school and having dinner together as a family. But, what are your priorities?
Yeah. Brian, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
You too.
One of my top favorite interviews, probably because you have more wisdom to share than most people. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.